Alright, what's up YouTube? 702 guy here again with another tips and tricks tutorial on how to make your song sound better. This one's coming to you because of a few requests on basically to show how I set up my songs as far as the patterns and the melodies go. This isn't going to be an extremely in-depth tutorial as I don't want it to go way too long. But I do plan on hopefully making a step-by-step tutorial again for another song to kind of show you guys in more detail. But basically I'm just going to overview a few things that I do within this song. So what I'm going to show you basically is I'm going to show you the patterns, how I set up my tracks, and I'm going to give you a brief thing on how I set up the whole entire song. So this song is the song Stinkweed off my new EP Whipsaw, which just dropped a couple weeks ago. You'll be able to download it. There'll be a link in the description if you want to grab that. But let's get started. So basically, to briefly explain how I set up my patterns, I set them up each time I want to make a new sound, a new melody, or a new beat of any kind. I make a new pattern. I don't go ahead and mix patterns together. Like I won't mix my beat and my background melodies together. I won't mix my background bass and my melody together. I don't do that because I find that way too complicated. Some people do. It's ultimately your preference on what you want to do as far as your songs go, but I like separating everything. So as you can see here, I've got my beat, background piano, background bass. Alright, so basically, sum it up, I separate my patterns each individually with new sounds. Now how I set up my tracks is, with my tracks, I've got all my tracks with all my different parts of the songs, and they're all mashed together. So track 1 has my beat, track 2 has my background piano, track 3 is my background bass line, track 4's got my ARP, track 5's got my main bass line, track 6 is my melody, track 7 is all the effects, track 8's the tornado siren, track 9's my woos, and then these are my automation clips down here. So what I do with the reason I do that is because that way I know where everything's at. It's just me personally. I used to mix everything together wherever it would fit, but I find it a lot easier now to separate all the patterns. That way I can know where everything's at inside my head. I don't label everything. I don't label everything because I already kind of know where it's at, but yeah, that's basically how I set it up as far as my tracks go. Now, for the people who are looking for how I set up my melodies and my piano rolls, and how I mix melodies together and make them sound good, basically what I do is, to make it simple, I use the same notes. If you listen to all the background melodies of my songs compared with the main melodies, they usually all have the same notes. For example, this one's got a C, G sharp, and an F. Alright? That's the same with my background melody. Same with my main melody as well. Over here. See, they're all set up on C, G sharp, F. Alright. Now, I'm not going to go into a big, whole, huge music theory thing on it, on why I do that, but to make it simple, if the notes are all different from each other, they usually don't mix. Now, you can make a mix, but they usually don't. Okay, so I'll show you here how I have it set up with just the melodies, and I'll go ahead and throw a couple different notes in there and basically show you that it changes up the sound way too much. So here's with all the melodies all going together. Alright, see, now if I was to switch this up here, and I was to like raise this up a few notes or something, and now if you listen to it, alright, so basically you want to keep, what I would recommend if you're not a huge person in music theory and all that stuff, just keep the notes the same. Find notes that sound good, and then keep them the same throughout all your melodies. It's the easiest way to make a melody work. Now, a brief thing on the bass line. Basically, how I set up my bass lines is I set them up as if they're 8 bars. Each bass line is 8 bars long. And if I need to switch it up, I'll either make another one or I'll just replace it and add more stuff as far as the song goes. So, for example, here, it's the same bass line here as it is here, except this time I've added an ARP. And then here the bass line switches up, so now I make a new pattern for that. Bass line switches up again, make a new pattern for that. Then over here, when the second drop hits, new pattern. So basically, just what I do is I usually don't make it any longer than 8 bars for each pattern of my bass line. But again, it's up to you on what you want to do. This is just how I set up mine. One little trick I would mention with the bass lines, though, for a lot of beginners, I didn't really realize the importance of a sub bass for a while after I was making music. It took me a little bit to kind of realize the importance of it. But basically, with a sub bass, what's important with it is it adds more sound or more bass to it. It makes it sound a lot better. So when I always do my stuff, I always layer it with an extra thing of sub bass. So if you look at the sub bass here, it matches all the notes that are down here. It's sub bass. No. So I'll show you it basically without sub bass and with sub bass. So this is without sub bass. Alright, now this is it with sub bass. Alright, so you can hear, if you've got good headphones, if you're listening to this on laptop speakers, you probably didn't hear anything there. But if you're listening to this on some decent headphones, you can hear that it makes it sound more fat, it makes it a lot better. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into very much more detail because this will end up being like a 30-minute long tutorial. But I'm just going to go ahead and stop it here. I'm going to try to make another step-by-step tutorial for you guys, so that way I can be able to go more in depth with each individual part of the song. But for those few requests for the people who have been looking for something like this is how I set up my songs, to make it simple. Now, I'm not going to go into mixing, mastering, and all that stuff. Like I said, that's for another tutorial. But as always, if you have any tutorial requests, go ahead and drop them off in the comments section below. If I can do what you request in the tutorial, I will do it. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.